Wonderful day here on Fake Chats, and I have with me right now special guest Garry Nation, who is an actor. I'm excited to talk with you today, Garry. Welcome to our program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, to begin the conversation, your breakthrough role as Polycarp earned you Best Actor at the International Christian Film Festival. What was the most challenging aspect of portraying a second century Christian martyr, and how did it resonate with the audiences?
Wow, big question, and I hope won't have to give you too big of an answer, but uh, it was uh, it was a big role. It was a big role. In exactly my second time on film, I am playing what for any actor would be the role of a lifetime, and it was an incredible experience. I knew I was going to have a good time doing it. You know, going and doing all of that. I had one film experience prior to that, and that was in the feature film Indescribable, which is about the story of the writing of the hymn "The Love of God" as told from the point of view of the children of the man who wrote it. Wonderful, wonderful film, and it's had a very popular run, and people do love that movie. I show up in there for about 4 minutes max. I had a 1 day shooting schedule in one of the hottest summers on record, in one of the hottest days of that summer, in one of the hottest locations of the summer. It was a tremendous experience. But I played a medieval rabbi in Worms, Germany. And again, I was only on screen for 4 minutes max, but it's an impact role. And that role directly led to my being cast as Polycarp. Um, and then when I did that, yeah, there was just a lot to learn, and I knew about Polycarp going into it. Polycarp was a second century Christian martyr. Most Christians have not heard of him, um, but those who have, like me, are usually people who have studied some church history, and there's about 2 paragraphs on Polycarp in a typical church history book. And that's what I knew about Polycarp. So I had to dig in a lot deeper. And I did my own translation from Greek of the one extant writing that we have from him, which is an epistle to the Philippian church. And there were I just was able and I studied what Irenaeus, the church father, who was a disciple of Polycarp, what he had to say about him, and learned so much. It was it was just a big role, and it was a challenging role, and I knew I was gonna have fun doing it, and I did, had a blast, and working with a very young crew but very professional. Um, I was, of course, one of the absolute old guys. Uh, it was. I had a good time doing that. What I did not expect, Andrew, was to be one of the most prolonged and powerful spiritual experiences of my life. And it really did change me. I had a long drive home after that, a long 2 day drive home. All the way was saying, Lord, what have you just done in my life here? What has just taken place? And the film was debuted about a year and a half later. We shot it in August of 2013, and it was debuted in the spring of 2015 at the Christian Worldview Film Festival in at that time in San Antonio, and then at the International Christian Film Festival in Orlando and in other places. And that was really impactful. And you mentioned that I won a Best Actor award, and that I was one of the most surprised people there uh, to that my name was the one that was called. There were some name actors who were nominated, and I expected one of them to receive the award. But when they called my name, I went up to get it, and I hadn't prepared a speech for me. But that really was what opened the door to what I could see, that this is what the Lord wanted me to do in this season of my life. My main occupation and calling is Christian ministry. And this is not what I expected to be doing at this season of my life, but here we are. And so I have been in the acting profession then for real and seriously for about the last 10 years. And it's been, the Lord has really used this in my life, and I trust that the Lord has used me in the lives of others through what I'm doing now.
So, as you mentioned, you have been featured in films like Indescribable as Rabbi Meir and Melchior in Chasing the Stars, to historical icons like General Robert E. Lee in Legends and Lies. How do you approach the research and preparation for such diverse period specific characters?
You know, first of all, with every character, I start with the script. Um, the script really tells me the direction to take with my character. And I do, and it's an interesting thing. I discovered that I study scripts. It occurred to me one day, I study scripts the same way I study the Bible. And I'm approaching it using the same kind of methodologies. And I call it script exegesis. What I want to do is mine the script for what it says about the character. So that's where I start. And then from there, I will go about, and if it's a historical character, I'll do historical preparation as I can, and for what's available. Uh, for for the Magi Melchior, I studied the Magi, and there are different theories about who the Magi were, and I saw that the film took a particular theory, and so I've drilled down on that and uh, dealt with the character that way. With General Lee, what I particularly did in studying for General Lee was I went to a collection of the letters that he wrote. He was he never wrote an autobiography, but he was a prolific letter writer. And a lot of his thoughts and a lot of his personality that we don't always get in the typical historical portrayals is in that. And so I went in there and trained myself in who Robert E. Lee was beyond the portraits and the monuments and the battles. And so yeah, that's when there's material available, I want to dig into it. And if there's not much material available, I'll go with what there is, but then I'll use some historical imagination to try to fill in the gaps.
So you showcase versatility in genres from faith-based dramas to comedies like My Grandpa Detective. What draws you to the lighter roles, and do you see more comedic projects in your future?
Well, I'm kind of a natural comic anyway. I look at a lot of my early influences came from comedians like Jack Benny and Red Skelton and uh, uh, the Three Stooges and Laurel and Hardy. And so I have all of these streams of influence in me. Um, and I was happy to find out when My Grandpa Detective was my second feature film after Polycarp. And as a matter of fact, my working in Polycarp directly connected me with that because the filmmakers had involved one of the cast members uh, in Polycarp uh, was connected with the group that was making My Grandpa Detective, and he recommended that they check me out for the role of Grandpa, and so that's how I ended up winning that role. So that was my second role before Polycarp came out. I was shooting My Grandpa Detective up in Alberta, Canada, and had a blast doing that. And really, I wanted, I really wondered, okay, I've figured out I can do drama. Can I really do comedy and sell that? And I rejoiced at how comfortable I felt doing comedy. And it really does, it's something I enjoy. I hope I get to do more of it. I've done a little bit more of it, not a whole lot. Most of the roles I get are dramatic, but I've gotten to do some comedy. One of them was the short film, the greatest short film ever, which is a spoof of and a parody of Christian movies. Had a good time with that, and done some other lighter roles, and I enjoy doing that. I enjoy doing the heavy roles. I enjoy doing the light ones. And I like the variety. I've always been somebody who's just enjoyed variety.
So, as both an actor and a voice narrator, how does your distinctive voice play into performances, and what's your favorite voice acting project to date?
Oh, it's hard to say what my favorite voice acting project is. I'll start with the last question. It's hard to say because I've been in a good number of them. Um, I had a good time this past year with a Jake Muller adventure, um, and working on that with Darby Kern and shooting or taping that in a studio in Wheaton, Illinois. Um, had a good time with that. Played a character that was kind of sinister. That's always fun to do. And with Lamplighters, maybe my favorite role has been the role of the ship's captain that I played in Shipwrecked but Not Lost. Um, One of the reasons is I got to use my Russian accent with that one, and so that was a fun one to do. Um, I've I've known I inherited my voice from my dad. Now, and people have told me I have a commanding voice. You should have heard my dad.
Hmm.
I I inherited my voice, both my speaking voice and my singing voice, from my dad. I inherited my dramatic uh, instincts from my mom, and they've been a nice combination. But I've always recognized that my voice is one of my assets as an actor. Just kind of as an aside, one of the greatest challenges that I had as an actor was one that robbed me of that asset. Um, it was a film in which I had no dialogue. Um, and the film was Last Call, a short film made by Nato Jacobson, and in which I play the dying father of an estranged daughter, and she's trying to reconnect with him through phone calls and leaving phone messages. And he's listening to her messages, but he's not picking up. Uh, and it was a pretty challenging role because it deprived me of something that uh, is one of my actor's assets. And uh, so you try to be ready for everything and try to, again, I love the variety. I love being able to do different things and to exploit what I have, and then to shut off one thing in order to exploit another. I enjoy figuring out how to do that.
So, with over 4 decades in Christian ministry, including as a pastor and with Probe Ministries, how has your work as an actor deepened or challenged your understanding of sharing the gospel through storytelling?
You know, this is something I never thought that I would be doing this. I've been interested in, and I've studied acting practically all my life. I got interested in acting as a thing when I was 13 years old, and the film that was out then that swept so many of the Academy Awards was A Man for All Seasons, including the Best Actor Award for Sir Paul Scofield, who played Sir Thomas More in that. And his incredible performance kind of turned me on to the difference between actors and movie stars. And so I really set myself and began studying acting at that point. And I've had this internal sense of acting, and I used my dramatic impulses along the way in ministry, doing monologues, dramatic readings, learning how to read the Bible in such a way that it's not just a drab reading of Scripture, but seeks to bring alive what the Scriptures have to say, and to bring in the drama that is embedded in the Scriptures. I've done characters. Sometimes I've dressed up in full costume and makeup as different biblical characters, and would do that. And then when I linked up with Probe Ministries, and that was a too brief association that wasn't the fault of either me or them. It just was the providence of the Lord. He used that ministry to move me to College Station, Texas, and my family, and we were there for 20 years, longest I have ever lived in any one place. And but we were involved in a church that was involved in dramatic, had many dramatic opportunities for me to kind of hone my skills on stage. And then that led to a very strong role as Mordecai in a Broadway-style musical on the story of Esther, written by a friend of mine there in Bryan and College Station. And so after playing that role on stage, I really felt validated as an actor. I felt like I could say, Nation, you're an actor. And that role directly led to my being cast in Indescribable, which directly led to my being cast in Polycarp. But I see what I'm doing now as being not a departure from my ministry, which is mainly that of being a teacher of God's Word,
Right.
but an extension of that. And through films like Polycarp, which is seen all over the world and has had a couple of million views in its Spanish version on YouTube. I've been able to reach a much larger audience than I've ever been able to reach through any other medium. And so I'm grateful to God for it. I'm grateful to what He's given me, and I just seek to be faithful to what He sets in front of me.
So your book, Fool, explores character deficiencies from a biblical perspective.
Yeah.
How do themes from that work influence the roles you choose or the way you portray flawed characters on screen?
Enormously, enormously. It really helps. Well, it helps me in character breakdown. Just to fill in your listeners on and viewers on what the book is about. It is a forensic study of the different kinds and the different levels of folly that you see depicted, especially in the wisdom literature of the Old Testament, Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, and in the Psalms. And I got into that study because I knew from college studies that there were different words for fool that are often simply translated fool in the scriptures, but there are different Hebrew words and they all have different tones of meaning. And when I got into it, I realized that those different meanings of fool are interconnected. And what you see are not just separate categories or that have nothing to do with each other, but really a downward spiral. And wisdom in the Bible is not primarily about being intelligent. It is about the development of good character as you walk in the ways of God, because the ways of God are the ways of life. The ways of God is the way of life, and the ways away from God are the ways of death.
Right.
And folly takes you into the ways of death, but you don't just dive in to it. And so there are different levels of folly, and which begins with the naive fool, the simple, which leads into the self-confident fool, which is the most common word for fool in the book of Proverbs, which leads into the full-fledged committed fool, which is the one which also says in the psalm, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. That's the committed fool. There is the naval, which is the fool's fool. That's basically the fool gone to seed. It's a truly corrupt character. And then there is finally, what I believe is the terminal level of fool is the scorner. Most commonly translated in modern translations, what are the modern translations do? I prefer the King James Version, which says scorner, because scorn is the real heart of what he does. So you've got those levels. As you explore those levels of character deficiency, you can see where the fault lines are dramatically. You can see where the fault lines are in any given character that you're looking at, because we all have a tendency to move toward folly, a tendency to, as it says in the hymn, prone to wander, Lord, I feel it, prone to leave the God I love. And so we've all got that. What are the fault lines? And so my analysis of the fool really helps me to understand where the fault lines are in my characters.
So, as a PhD holder from a Protestant seminary and founder of Serious Christian Incorporated, how do you balance scholarly pursuits with the creative demands of acting? And what advice would you give to aspiring Christian actors seeking intellectual depth in their craft?
Oh. Basically, Andrew, I refuse to see that there's a contradiction between the one and the other. The One of the greatest artists of all time was also one of the greatest scholars and the greatest intellects of all time, Leonardo da Vinci. Truth is truth. And Meisner's famous one-line definition of acting. Acting is telling the truth under imaginary circumstances. But acting isn't about. So there are some people who think, when you're acting, you're being deceptive. You're like, no. You're confusing acting with hypocrisy. Just because the word hypokritos happens to be the ancient Greek word for actor, someone who wears a mask. But that's the way that the Greeks played things. They put on a mask. When you're acting, and there's ways in which you put on a mask, but that's not about changing your character. That's not about telling a lie. It's doing so in order to tell the truth. It is, as you put it out, the word that you use, it's storytelling. And storytelling is at the heart of conveying truths throughout the scripture. So much of scripture is conveyed in stories. So much of Jesus' teaching is conveyed in stories. They convey the truth. And so to actors who are trying to navigate, don't think of that as being something that you have to navigate between that. Acting is not supposed to be anti-intellectual, uh, but it is channeling a different part of your brain than what you have when you're reading a book and studying a passage and learning facts. There is a different part of your brain that's doing that, but there's not a contradiction. Those two things blend together, and what you know works in to what you're trying to convey as an actor. So I just refuse to see that there's a contradiction.
So you've spoken on the intersection of faith and creativity and leadership. What biblical examples inspire you most when mentoring young creatives in the film industry?
What biblical example?
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know if I can just single out uh, any one biblical example. I think, though, that where I want to go is to the Psalms more than anything else. The Psalms, we don't just read the Psalms read us.
Right.
And the more we get into that, the more we can get into, the more we get into the Psalms, the more we get out of ourselves in the right kind of way and get into ourselves in the right kind of way. Um, the Psalms help us to express things. The Psalms teach us about things that we haven't experienced yet. And then we come back to those Psalms in the midst of those things that we had not experienced before, but then we find that somebody else has been there. I remember a youth minister preaching one time on the 23rd Psalm, and he got so excited when he said, "He leads us in paths of righteousness." You know what a path is? A path is some place where somebody's already been, and he got all excited. And that his excitement is what helped that stick to my mind and stick to my ribs. But that's the neat thing about the Psalm. The Psalms show us paths where somebody has already been. And so the experiences that are new to us, and some of them are very hard experiences, but that are new to us, we find somebody's already been there. And the experiences of high joy that we've never experienced, somebody's already been there and shows us there's somewhere we can go that we haven't been. And so I don't know if there's any one character in the Bible or any one person in the Bible that does, unless it's David in writing the Psalms. But I think going back to the book of Psalms is, uh, I think that really fits the ticket for me.
So, with directing your writing now on your resume, what kind of project, perhaps a faith infused historical drama or something entirely new, are you most excited to helm next?
Just before we got on the line here, I uploaded a screenplay to the Christian Worldview Film Festival that's coming up next spring. Um, and what that screenplay, it's a screenplay for its short film, but what it really is the first thing that I've written down, the first scene or sequence that I've written down for what I have in mind for a feature-length film telling the story of Mary of Bethany. And the scene that I have written out, which I submitted as a short film, is titled "The Alabaster Flask," and it's the story of when Mary anointed Jesus with the perfumed ointment, and laying all that out. And that's one that I have written. It's been kind of sitting there on the back burner. Once I got that scene written, I wanted to go back and do the other scenes that are recorded in the Bible and write those out. And I've just gotten stuck. A recent visit, though, to the Content 2025 Christian Media Summit, which was just recently held at Capernaum Studios in Parker County, Texas. One of the things that I got out of that is it kind of kicked my tail to get back and to go back into writing. I've got probably, as a writer, and very few people have seen much of the stuff that I've written. I've got some on the website seriouschristian.org. Not enough. But it kind of kicked my tail to get busy on the writing that I've wanted to do and need to do. And I've got a big back burner of things and of projects that I would like to get into that I'd like to write myself. And I have written and directed and acted in one film, and that is the story of Job in the film God Has Wronged Me. It's kind of a longish short film. So I've got that. I would like to direct more. Maybe the Lord will let me direct and lead me to direct a film that I've written. So we'll see. Otherwise, we'll see what comes up. And the Lord has always been my primary agent. I'm a member of the Treasure Coast Talent Agency, and Gene Winger has been my agent for the past few years, and wonderful agent. But the Lord has always been my primary agent. And so we'll see how he directs and see what he brings into my life. But perhaps he will see fit to let me, in the later years of my life and career, do a little more directing as well.
Well, Garry, thank you so much for your time right here on Faith Chats. We appreciate you, and we encourage folks, they can go to GarryNation.com to find out more about you and your projects.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Andrew.
All right. God bless.
God bless.